And so in many ways, it's about combining their digital lifestyles and their digital work styles. But you know what's kind of funny? So you talk to that generation and they laugh when I put that slide up because they say, Martin, you're barking mad. There's no such thing as my digital lifestyle and my digital work style. It is just my life. It's just my life. But you can start to get a bit of a feel for what it must be like in this world today if you actually don't understand anything that I've just been talking about. Because that is the mainstream of the way society works. And so when you fast forward now, in my mind, and this is something that Naomi, I'm sure, would have been very proud to see in my slide, because it's kind of in our discussions what you've informed me she was always all about, which is we can become overly fixated on formal learning, on the formal side of it. She was incredibly proud of the fact that in addition to those people that enrolled in the Open University, there were an inebriated person who spilled out of the bar back to home last night that ended up watching physics lectures from the Open University on BBC Two when they got back. She was proud of the fact that we educated people without even realizing we were educating them. And from a digital literacy standpoint, what's important, I think, for us all to think about is once we've got them connected, there are all these new channels that suddenly open up to us to do magical things with education that if she was with us today, she would be tickled at the idea of exploiting. And let me quickly go through those, and then we'll move to some questions. So, one of those that I wanted to share with you is a thing called iTunes University. Some of you may be aware of it, some of you not. But it's a piece of iTunes for universities to be able to, for free or for fee, distribute their content. We started working with it about 2 years ago. Now, we are proud as punch that there's been about 1.5 million people that have gone through the Open University in the last 40 years as formal students. But in the last 2 years, we've had 16 million downloads from iTunes University of our educational content, and we're now up to over 340,000 downloads a week of educational content, completely free, high impact, through iTunes University. And it's not just what you'd think about as podcasts or videos. What you're looking at now is an application that we're working on right now, which is a full microscope. It's a digital microscope that you can run on a mobile device. In this case, it's an iPhone. In a moment, you'll be looking at a piece of Mars. There you go. Big takeaway tonight. I bet you've never seen a rock from Mars before under a microscope, and there it is. And so the opportunities are not just for playing lectures or videos, but actually a lot more. If we fast forward from that now, there is a whole new movement in the world called Open Education Resources. It's about universities and others freely making available content through what are called OERs, or Open Education Resource Repositories. Again, what Naomi would have liked is I describe these now as the new megaphones of learning around the world, because this is OpenLearn, this is our particular manifestation, over 10 million users of OpenLearn around the world. By the way, on iTunes U, 88% of the people that use it are outside the UK, just as a matter of interest, and we constantly rate in the top 10 titles of any university in the world, and my investment in marketing in that is pretty well zero, and the reason why? Because great content floats to the top. But think about the millions and millions of people now that are getting an access to a higher education because they're digitally literate and they can start working with some of these new platforms of learning. With OpenLearn, it's also not just about static content. We've got virtual learning classrooms where anybody that wants to teach and anybody that wants to learn free can come together with full video connectivity. We've got mix it and match it labs where we've got people translating our courses now in all sorts of places in the world that we never dreamt of under common license agreements that are in there. But perhaps more importantly, which is the link that I want to make back to literacy, is born out of all of the work that we've done around openness, around these new channels of communication. We're also starting to see the promise of technology really addressing some of the world's biggest problems. It's really interesting as an Australian. Well, first of all, I have to say, it's terribly cruel for an Australian to bring him into a room with beautiful beaming sunshine outside and the man sitting in the front row is drinking a beer. I've got to tell you, this is not very fair, Andrew. But it's incredibly exciting for me in my first few months that I got invited to Buckingham Palace to get an award from the Queen for our TESSA program, which is Teacher Education in Sub-Saharan Africa, where we are well on the way through the application of this technology to training 500,000 primary school teachers in Sub-Saharan Africa to help them meet the Millennium Development Goals. And the great thing about it is hub and spoke. We work with partner institutions that have connectivity. We bring the teachers in, we get them access to the training and the materials. They take it in analog formats, go back to their schools. Amazing things start to happen. Just got a $4 million grant from UNICEF in Ethiopia to go in and actually work on training primary entry-level medical professionals to attend childbirths, because the infant mortality rate and the mother dying in childbirth rates are nothing short of tragic. And what's the root cause of that? The root cause of that is not having somebody in attendance with a fundamental level of understanding of what to do on the basics, often, of first aid and healthcare. Again, technology and technology literacy gives us opportunities, if we have access to it, to address those types of issues. And I can go on. There's a picture there of our English in Action program in Bangladesh, where we're using mobile phones to teach English. You start to get a feel for the fact of why digital literacy actually can not only help those of us in the developed world carrying around 100-pound, 300-pound devices, but actually from an infrastructure perspective, if we really focus on it, can go after some of the biggest challenges that the world faces. And so, somewhat in conclusion for you, this is the way that we've historically thought about higher education. I call it institutionally accredited learning. Predefined steps and paths, fixed granularity, standard curriculum and price. If you are on the outside looking in, that is a scary world, and a world that isn't very comfortable for you to try to access. Imagine a world, though, that looks like this. Imagine a world where we literally take the hundreds of millions of people who are getting exposed to higher education in these more informal ways, in these multi-channel environments that may have started in the beginning of the OU with television and radio, but now have branched out into all of these other ways, and we engineer smaller milestones. We take advantage of all of these great resources that the world has to offer. We allow for accreditation by mentors within the system and through the platform. And we start to build, as appropriate, on-ramps into formal education, because I think this is the world we need, ladies and gentlemen. I think one of the great promises of technology and digital literacy that we all need to be focused on, going back to the beginning of my presentation, is not being so focused on getting them connected to the networks and the devices, but thinking about the magic that can happen once we do get them connected. And part of the magic is letting them move in and out of higher education as and when they need to meet their needs for themselves, for their families, for society, for our economies. And let's give up on these rigid, hardwired, ineffectively structured, bureaucratic, often elitist structures that we seem stuck in, and start looking to a future where we recognize everybody needs access to a higher education for their life. For that to be scalable, cost-effective, meaningful, it's about using the technology of the day. We might call it digital literacy, but what we're really talking about, from my perspective, are the survival skills for the 21st century. You don't get any more out of me until Q&A, so ask good questions. Thank you very much.